we jump in, let me just say this. You know, we work with a lot of doctors because we're totally, you guys, we're totally into health and wellness. And we do that from a science-based perspective, right? And so for kids on the spectrum, anyone that's on the spectrum, what we know is that they have high levels of oxidative stress.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about what are the things that need to be addressed, right? So we need to address high levels of oxidative stress, which is that, you know, damage to our cells. And we're addressing high inflammation. They've got low levels of glutathione. They've got mitochondrial dysfunction. They have gut issues. And so many times the medical community is addressing those issues from a pharmaceutical perspective, but we want to address those issues from a natural perspective, and we do it through nutrigenomics. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you. And again, I want to say thank you for joining me today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Share, you know, just jump in and share, how were you introduced to this? How were you, what's your family experience?
Yeah, so we, man, I got to take myself back to that place because I mean, it feels like it was so long ago and we've made so many strides and seen so much development in CJ. So Caleb, or CJ, same person. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. Actually, the first person that brought it to my wife and I's attention was my mother-in-law. She said, you know, I think CJ might have autism. Started sending us a bunch of resources, and to be honest, I didn't even want to look at them when we first, I mean, she was sending us stuff in the mail, sending us some articles via email, and I wouldn't touch anything because I said, like, he's barely even 3. How do we know? You know, how would we know if he has autism? I mean, he could be delayed, and he was really bright, actually. I mean, he knew his alphabet before his first birthday. He could point out all the letters in the alphabet. Super smart kid. But some of the triggers, he would stand in one place and flap his arms. He'd line up stuff in a straight line. And his social skills just weren't, like, his peers were just like flying by him on regards to social skills. And so those were some of the triggers, some of the things that she noticed. My wife was like, I think we need to look into this. I'm like, listen, he's still young. We're good. and, and that was really my perspective. And this was before he even turned 3. We finally got a diagnosis when he was 3. We were doing some things preliminarily before we got a diagnosis. He was doing some speech therapy and some different things. We weren't seeing much progress at all. And it became painfully obvious why I had to even just admit, like, dang, I think my son might have autism. I wasn't really familiar with autism. If I'm honest, I didn't know what it was by name and how, like, you know, how do you know somebody has autism when you see him? I couldn't tell you. And so literally we got a diagnosis, and then it kind of started the journey of, okay, we got to get therapies. And we just, I mean, the traditional method, right? You get therapies, you get all these outside sources and resources to come in and help. And literally we did that for a year and a half. You know, we did that for a year and a half, and it was just like, we were just kind of trudging along, you know, take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. We were getting over 40 hours a week of therapy, and that's on top of the time that he was spending in school. I mean, so for him, even, it was a full-time job, you know, to have people. I mean, we had everybody in our house all the time from 8 to 6, typically every single day. And that was just the life that we lived. That was the life that we lived. It was a lonely journey, if I'm honest. We didn't know anybody. I mean, we were, out of our close friends at the time, we were the first ones to really have kids. So we didn't have a group of people who had gone before us, who had done this stuff before. It was all brand new for us. And so it was a lonely road. And as a dad, I mean, I was the dad that's like, hey, my son's going to be the first pick in the NBA draft one day. We got to get ready. I know he's only 2, but we got to get ready. And that was just, it was one of those things where it's like, and it was honestly helpful for me to come to grips with the fact that, you know something, I can't impose my dreams and desires on my son. God has made him who he is. And he may never want to pick up a basketball, and that's okay. Those were some of the things that my ego was hurt. I had to wrestle through my insecurities of, man, my son has autism. When we go out in public, I mean, sometimes it was difficult because he's so sensory oriented. Everything's loud. Everything smells a lot stronger to him than what it might to me. And learning to wrestle through that. What does it look like to go sit in a restaurant and have dinner as a family?
Yeah.
What does it look like just to go run to the post office? I mean, just all these different things that you're not prepared for it. You don't come in and say, "Hey, give me a kid with autism." But it's been honestly the most helpful and beneficial thing for our family. We've learned so much from him. And beyond, I don't mean the type of like, oh, my son's teaching me patience because he doesn't know how to stand still, and I don't mean that kind of stuff. I mean the type of thing where I'm learning from him what it looks like to, be able to love one thing and just do it for a long time. Those
Yes.
types of things. What does it look like to persevere when you got people in your space all day long trying to teach you and help you and do all these? Like he's been in school since he was 3.
Yeah.
He's got additional years of school already tacked on to the front end. And so that's just what life looked like. Like I said, he was getting a ton of therapy. We were introduced to nutrigenomics. My wife is a pharmacist, and so she's the science person in our household. I'm more of the business mind. She's the science person, hands down.
Yeah.
We ride both our lanes very well.
Love it.
And we don't do well switching. But we were introduced to nutrigenomics, and a friend of ours gave us a call one day and said, "Hey, well, let me back up. I posted something on Facebook actually, and for the first time, actually said, man, my son has autism. This has been a challenge." And there was a picture of us working together on something, and I was like, man, that picture that Camille took was it was just it was something that really, as I saw it, it was like, man, this is difficult for me,
Yeah.
for us to engage. He likes spending time by himself. I like spending time with people a ton, but he doesn't like me in this space a lot. And for us to be like both engaged in something that's like still my favorite picture to date.
Yeah, I remember seeing that picture, Josh, and I tell you, it is a powerful, powerful image.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So, I posted it and just talked about the fact that he had autism. Most people didn't know, unless you were like around us, and had been kind of on a journey with us. You didn't know because we didn't talk publicly about it a ton. And a friend of ours hit us up, and she said, "Hey, I saw you said CJ has autism. I have a friend in Phoenix." My connection says trying to reconnect. Okay, cool. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. My phone said trying to reconnect. I'm like, what's going on? But so she reached out to us and she said, hey, will you just, reach out to my friend in Phoenix? Just talk to her. Her son has autism. They've seen phenomenal results doing what they're doing. It might be helpful. I said, cool. Sat down and got a ton of information. It was sciencey.
Yep. You're like, huh?
So I was like, I don't know, like, what's a cell again? It's been a while since I took a biology class. My wife though, being the genius that she is, she Camille ate it up and she was like, we gotta try this, because it's interesting, being in the pharmaceutical industry, she was not for medicating them. She was like, we can't go that route. I see it all the time. You can give kids stuff that they'll never get off of. And so she didn't want to go that route. This was an all natural method. And so she was excited about it. And it's funny. I'm always skeptical. I'm like, everybody claims to have this great product that can help somebody with something. And I was just skeptical. I said, listen, we'll see. We'll see.
Right.
It wasn't going to break the bank for us to purchase it. So we tried it. And literally at this time he was 4, he couldn't hold a pencil and write his name in a straight line. He'd like, if he held the pencil, he'd hold it, fist grip, and he'd write his name and he'd just stack all the letters on top of each other and they would be, somewhat readable.
Right.
He couldn't, he had a 4 to 6 word vocabulary up in there. He had about 6 words that he could say like without prompting. Everything else was, he would parrot all day long. I mean, if I said, if you came over to my house and I said, hey, CJ, tell Miss Brenda hi, he'd say, hey, CJ, tell Miss Brenda hi. He
Yeah.
just couldn't pick up the nuances. So we start trying them on these products. Like I said, I'm skeptical. Within 24 hours, he sleeps through the night for the first time in about 6 months. It had been a while. Yeah, it had been a while
Mhm.
since he like. And when I say slept through the night, I don't mean like, oh, he woke up for 15 minutes and went back to sleep. I mean, no, he woke up and was up for 2 hours. And so when you got a 4-year-old that's up for 2 hours, somebody's got to stay up with him.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's what life looked like. And literally within 24 hours, he slept through the night for the first time. And my wife's like, man, that's crazy. He slept through the night for the first time. And I'm like, we'll see.
Wow.
We'll
You're
see.
still skeptical.
Yeah, super skeptical.
Yep.
Super
Yep.
skeptical. And literally, he, like I said, he couldn't talk. So I'm in my office right now. I'm sitting here. I was working from home for the company that I worked for at the time, working from home. And my parents were coming in town that day. And I was going to go pick them up from my brother's house. We were going to go get some stuff to grill, the whole nine. So I was going to go to the store. I'm upstairs. My wife's downstairs. We're talking across the house on who's going to go to the store. Am I taking kids with me? What's going on? We're trying to figure out the details. I come back to my office. I was elected to go to the store.
Elected or voluntold?
Both.
I love
So
it.
I decided to go to the store, and literally CJ walks in and he says, "Hey daddy, I want to go to the store with you." And so I'm sitting there working and I look and I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he said, "I want to go to the store." And I'm like, "Man, that's really good parenting." Like
Wow.
this was literally about 3 weeks after he starts this stuff. I'm like, that's really good parenting. So I step out the room. I'm like, excuse me, son, before I answer that question. I'm like, Camille, did you tell CJ to come and let me know he wanted to go to the store? And she's like, what are you talking about? CJ's in his room playing on his iPad. And I was like, no, he's not. He just walked in and asked me to go to the store. And she's just like, what do you mean he walked in and asked you to go to the store? I'm like, you might want to come up here. And like literally, that was the first time he used a sentence on his own. And he started like, I mean, literally, he said he wanted to go to the store. I'm like, absolutely, we're going to the store. We might go to 2 stores.
Yep. There you go.
So, but I mean, ever since then, it's been thing after thing after thing. Like I said, he was getting all this therapy. Every single one of his therapists came to us and they were like, what in the world is going on? And we were intentional about not to say anything because we were like, we know we
Yes.
can be biased. Like we know as his
Right.
parents, like anything. I mean, man, he's growing afro all of a sudden. Like, we knew we could be biased and literally. So he had one therapist that did about 20 hours of his therapy. She was here multiple hours a week. Literally, she comes in crying. She comes into the kitchen crying one day. She's like, he's cracking jokes. I can't
Oh
believe
my
it. He's
gosh.
cracking jokes.
Wow.
And I mean, and we're like, he's cracking jokes. Like, well, what was the joke? Was it funny? But I mean, literally, that was the type of impact that the type of change. It was that drastic that the people that were around him the most that didn't even know what we were
Yes.
doing, they saw it and they were like, wow, this is crazy. And so, I mean, he's 7 now. So we're going on a little over 3 years that we've
Yep.
been running this path. And I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, the kid that couldn't hold a pencil. He's an artist.
Yes.
The Steve Harvey show called us once because they saw his artwork. So he draws this. He drew the United States. Actually, I've got one. So I have some of his artwork. He drew this by hand, freehand.
Freehand.
That's
Yes.
freehand. Like no, not looking at a map. This is like him just drawing the states freehand. He colored them, labeled them, the whole nine.
Yep.
And now this is more recent, but I mean when I posted the video, he was only 5. He
Yeah.
was drawing the U.S. map from memory with a pen. that was the thing. It was with a pen.
I remember seeing that with a pen. You're
Yeah.
like, he was he just knew what he was
Yeah.
doing.
So I recorded him drawing it, and I'm just a proud dad. I'm like, my kid's drawing a U.S. map. I don't even know all 50 states. He's drawing them.
Right.
And I posted it on Facebook. I mean, he got 1 million hits in a week.
Yeah.
And so it was funny. The Steve Harvey show called us. And they were like, is that your son? And I'm like, actually, it is. And so they scheduled a meeting with us. I mean, it never turned into anything.
Right.
But just the fact that they called for me was like, that's a pretty big deal. You get a call from Steve Harvey's team, you take it.
Right. Exactly.
And so it was.
Yep.
Those are the big things for us that have been a big deal. I mean, his speech like to date is phenomenal. communicates clearly. And I mean, by no means am I saying like, oh man, he doesn't have autism anymore. What I am
And I
saying is that,
remember Camille said, and you guys shared that number one, he got kicked out of one of his schools because,
yeah. So
you know,
yeah,
literally.
we tried to put him in a school for kids with autism less than a
Uh-huh.
year after we started this stuff, and literally within a month, they were like, he's way too advanced. We can't help him.
Yep,
And
yep.
because we started seeing some regression, and they were just like, nah, he's too advanced for what we can offer him. Like he's bored. And
Yeah.
he's picking up on some bad habits from the other kids and the whole nine. And so, yeah, we had to pull him out of that school. So I mean, it's been great. He's in first grade now,
Yeah.
reading, math. I mean, it's
And he's
awesome.
got friends. I
Oh
remember
my
you guys
goodness.
saying he's
Yeah,
got friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that was a big deal for us. I mean, when you have a kid that's socially not as engaged, you wonder like, man, will he ever have friends?
Yeah.
I mean, his ability to engage with his siblings. I mean, we just had some friends come in town for the weekend. I mean, literally, he walks in the room one day. We're all eating dinner and just hanging out, sitting around talking. He walks in, he's like, guys, I've got a joke. It's just like, man,
I love it.
it's just so cool to see the progress that he's made over time and how well he's done. So we're over the moon excited for the progress that he's made. Um, we believe that the path for parents who travel the autism road is typically pretty lonely because it catches so many
Mhm.
people off guard, and most people don't. I mean, that autism is, I feel like, it's becoming more of a common, unfortunately common thing, but also
Yeah.
more commonly just known and talked about,
Yeah.
in the last decade or so. But I mean, it's we want to be a resource for parents. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, my wife is brilliant. She can tell you in the state of Arizona, at least, she can tell you what office to call, who to ask for, what companies to work with, which ones not to work with. I mean, she
Yeah.
knows all that stuff, and there's just so many resources that you can put in place. But we do believe that it starts because most people grab external resources, who are the therapists that can come in and help try and
Mhm.
work and modify behavior. Um, but there are things that you can do to help children internally and just help their bodies to be optimized and in the best position
Right.
to even receive all the other stuff that you would do from a therapeutical standpoint and from
Yeah.
the outside stuff. So